Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make a shrimp scampi with a little bit of spinach in it, some oven roasted asparagus, and we're just going to cook up a loaf of garlic bread that I had sitting in the freezer because you know what? Sometimes you don't have time to make homemade bread, but it's still good. So let's start by getting our noodles cooking. I'm just going to be using some thin spaghetti, but you could do fettuccine, you could do angel hair. I feel like with scampi, you could do any noodle really. So we're going to add in here, I'm going to add in to my boiling water. And now I already am going to apologize to any Italians on here. I'm going to break my noodles because I don't like to wait for them to go down underneath the water. I'm not a patient person, at least not when it comes to cooking. There we go. So we're just going to break all of these in here. But a really simple dinner. Tomorrow my kids start back at school. I'm so not ready for this. And today I feel like I have shopped till I dropped. We kind of left right after our lunch stream and I just got home like an hour ago, if not even. So we were shopping all day, getting, school supplies, new back to school outfits, shoes. And my daughters finally convinced me to let them go get their ears pierced. So they got their ears pierced today as well against my better judgment. We'll see. Hopefully they take good care of them. So I've got mine in there. I gave it a good stir so that none of it sticks. And then we're going to add in some salt because I'm going to be using a little bit of this pasta water in our shrimp scampi. So,
You have a question? Are the live times going to change with school starting up?
No, because we kind of just really kept our schedule over the summer. Now, I think it's going to be about the same timing, give or take, if we have sports games and whatnot, but they should be roughly around the same. Okay, let me give it a good stir once we put that water in, and then I'm going to bring it back to a boil. Turn it up. I always like it to have my water boiling on like medium with a strong boil, and then I can turn it up once I add my noodles in because it kind of brings it down. Let's get our onions going for our shrimp scampi. I'm going to mince up our onions pretty finely because I want them to kind of be really mellow in our sauce. So I'm just using one yellow onion here, kind of peel it all off. And we'll let this start to kind of caramelize up once we get it nice and minced.
You have a question? Are your ears pierced?
They were pierced. I got my ears pierced when I was 17 years old. And I wore earrings probably, I want to say, until I was like maybe 24. But then I worked at this lab school with children with disabilities, and I worked with the little itty bitty babies because I just love babies. And they would always like rub up, even if I was wearing like a stud, and I'd always end up scratching them. So I took out my earrings and I just never put them back in. And my holes have like closed up now, but it just became impractical for work to wear them. And then I just stop wearing them. It's like one of those things where I always talk and I'm like, I used to get all dressed up and dolled up and did my makeup and everything like that. And now I'm like, I'm too old for this stuff. I used to be all cute and now I have 5 kids and there's no time for that. I said, you'll see me dressed up like once a year. And that's when my family has a kind of this tradition to do we go out to like a fancy restaurant with all of my siblings. We like rent out a big room at a restaurant. And it always has to be a bougie fancy one. And we dress up to the nines and we do that every year. So that's like the one time I get really fancy. Other than that, I am like the queen of comfort. I like to be comfortable and, just once you get older, you realize who do I need to impress? And I dress up for my doctors. I think that's a common theme. When women go to the doctors, they always look nice and they're always, so the doctors get it. And then my one crazy night a year. Okay, so I'm mincing up my onions again. I want to mince them as small as possible because I want them to really blend into this sauce so that they're not just like, oh, that was a big chunk of onion. So I've got this nice kind of almost as small as garlic. And we're going to get this sauteing. My sauce is going to use kind of part olive oil and butter because with shrimp scampi, you've got to use butter. So we're going to start with our olive oil to begin with. I'm going to put in about, that looks like a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons. This is a really big pan. This is a 6-quart saute pan. So I need a little bit more because it's a big pan. Okay. Let's get that all in here. And we're going to let that nice kind of saute up and get a nice caramelization on it. So I'm going to do it over about a 6 because I don't want my onions to get scorched, but I want them to have a nice caramelization. And let me grab, I just grab my little spatula here, kind of let them all get coated in this olive oil. And then we're going to mince up some fresh garlic. So most of the time I'm a garlic girl because it's just easier. But with shrimp scampi, garlic is one of those things that really make this shine. So you've got to use fresh. So we're going to kind of put it here. See if we can get all of these. There we go. Getting all of my little garlic heads out. Now, I always say I never like to use fresh garlic because it is such a pain, but it is delicious. I was going to see, I tried to do this hack where you cut it through the middle and you push down and it's supposed to come out evenly. It never does. There's no trick to making it like perfect every time. But, and that's my rule. If garlic isn't the star of the recipe, then just use your garlic. If it's something that it's going to be a big component of it, then you want to use fresh. Because they have different flavors, you know. Their fresh garlic is definitely more pungent. And for some reason, it's making my eyes sting. Okay, let's get all these little wrappers off because you need them off. Otherwise, they'll be chewy in your finished product. I always say it's a kind of a pain to do fresh garlic, but for this dish, it's going to be worth it. Now, with your garlic, the more cuts that you use on it, the more flavor it's going to come out. Let's give our onions a little stir here. We're starting to get the saute going up. And I lost a piece of garlic over here. And let me get my noodles. I like to stir my noodles every so often because I don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pot. That would just makes it hard to clean up and make me sad. Okay. Once we get these up, we're going to prep our asparagus to go in the oven with our garlic bread. Again, okay, I think I've got most of the little wrappers off. And this is about, probably, 5 or 6 full head or like cloves of garlic. Like I got a couple big ones in there. Okay. Just going to smash them down a little bit. That's just going to make them a little bit easier to kind of mince up. And then we're just going to do lots of little cuts over it. The more cuts that you make on it, the more flavor you're going to bring out. So if you do thin slices, you'll have less flavor. A loose, mince, more flavor. And if you completely make your garlic into a paste, that's where you're going to get the most flavor from. Similar with fresh herbs. The more cuts on it, the more flavor. Grab those out. But with shrimp scampi, because it is kind of a white wine and garlic and lemon juice kind of base of a sauce, you want that fresh garlic to really shine. And this is, you can see it's going to be about a tablespoon of garlic once we're all chopped up here. So we've got, again, just lots of this lovely fresh garlic. I always say, I always have a bag of fresh garlic. I always have fresh garlic, but I don't use it often. Okay, gotten this. We're just about here. Look at that. So we've got a pretty good mince on it. I'm just going to go over it a few more times. And then we will add this to our onions once in 1 second. There we go. Give this a stir. Once I see a kind of a golden color happening on my onions, we'll add them in, but we don't want to add them in yet. Because those onions, once you start adding other things in, it kind of gets them cooked up a bit fast. Let me clear out my garlic mess here and my onion mess. See, I brought out my garlic in case I was going to give up halfway through. Here, we'll move this right over here. And I'm going to prep my asparagus for our dinner. These are going to go in my oven and kind of roast up. When you use asparagus, when you buy it from the store, you need to cut off about 1 inch of that stalk so that it is, because it's going to be dried out and really fibrous. Don't feel like you're wasting a lot of asparagus. This isn't going to taste good. It's going to be really chewy, like you're chewing on a stick. So cut that bottom off for it. We'll roast up our asparagus in the oven as we make our shrimp scampi for tonight's dinner. I feel like asparagus just goes well with shrimp scampi. Okay, we're starting to see a little bit of golden popping through on some of our onions here, so it won't be long. Let's put our asparagus in. And you kind of want to let them have as much space on here. And then I'm just going to do really, really simple with my asparagus today. I'm going to drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil. A little goes a long way, so like a teaspoon or so. We'll roll them back and forth here in a second.
You have a question? Is Teddy eating now?
He is. He is eating much better now. He even wanted to have some popcorn, and I was like, well, let's wait. Let's wait a little bit. Popcorn can be one of those things that can get caught and things. So I said, let's wait just a couple more days. But yes, I feel like yesterday and today, he's like back to his old self. He's kind of got his coloring back. He's more vibrant. I feel like I'm getting him back. I finally made him go back and sleep in his room. He was not happy about that. But I was like, I was reading all these things saying that, oh, just let him sleep in your room because when you have to give him medicine throughout the night, it'll be just easier if they're there with you.
You have a question? Do you think European butter is better for baking?
You know what? I would probably say it is. So the difference between American and European butter is European butter has a higher fat content. It's typically around 82% versus Americans around 80. And so it's much creamier, which I could definitely see it giving you a better bake on it. I put a little bit of pepper on there. We've got our garlic salt on here. Did I do my garlic salt? Yes, I did. So garlic salt, I couldn't remember. We're going to roll them back and forth in the oil. That's why I said you don't need a lot, just a little bit kind of to rock it on here. And then we're going to just sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And I'm using, these are like shaved Parmesan cheese, but they'll kind of just crisp up nicely on the asparagus, adds just an extra flavor. We've got our onions are starting to get that nice kind of golden brown to it. So we're going to throw in our garlic here. And then we'll get our asparagus in the oven with our garlic bread here in just a second. So we've got this fresh garlic going in, about a tablespoon of it. And I just kind of mix it up with that remaining oil in there to coat it. And it's really it's very fragrant and smelling. But it will be delicious. There we go. So I've got that. Let me get my garlic bread real quick. Again, I didn't have time to make bread because we were out shopping, totally dropping, and I always have a loaf in here because this is Evie's favorite bread in the whole wide world. Better than anything I make. You know how kids are. You make it, it's plop. The only problem I have with these is they always are like, they open up easily. They don't. Let's see. Gotta carefully, this is where we're doing our surgery. cutting it open because you want to make sure you get that butter on both sides. I'm just going to move this slightly out of the way so I can just do it on here. There we go. You know, they say just open it apart, keep it frozen until you're ready to use, and it never opens up well. Here we go. See, every time I do it, it ends up half and half. Here's what we got to do. We got to do a little surgery here. I got to use told my daughter today, and I'm like, I'm a doctor, you know. And she's like, you're not that type of doctor. And I'm like, doesn't matter. I'm still a doctor. Anytime I can use that, it just makes me happy. It's like when my mail comes and it says Dr. Jensen on it. It's just like, yeah, I am. Okay. We got this kind of buttered on here. Let's pop these two in the oven. I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees because that's what this says on the package of the bread. Always make your own, I will say. But you know what? Life happens, and sometimes you just don't have time. But Evie will be very happy. And these only need about 10 minutes at 400 degrees. So I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And
what kind of doctor does they?
Yeah, I have a doctorate of education in educational leadership and policy with an emphasis in K-12 education. Do I use my degree? No, I do not. Sometimes at home. I do it with my kids, teaching it here. You know what? I charred just a little bit of this. So we'll just take it out. There we go. I'm going to turn mine down to a 2 now, but that should be fine. I'll take out 2 little specks. That's what you get when you don't pay attention. There we go. So the rest should be good. Okay. Now we're going to add in, this is what's going to make your shrimp scampi delicious, and then we're going to check our noodles here. I'm going to add in a whole stick of butter. This is going to be like the main base for our thing. So we're going to put it in here. Nice and low, and we're gonna let it kind of infuse those flavors into our onion and that garlic into the butter. But again, want it nice and low. So I have mine on a 2 now because I don't want to scorch the milk fats in my butter. Let's check our noodles here. Perfect. Unfortunately, there's really no good way to check them without trying them yourself. Before I get rid of this, I'm going to be using a little bit of this stock, or not stock, but starchy water in my scampi. So I've got my little thing, and we're just going to ladle out a little bit. And remember, I put about 1.5 teaspoons of salt in here, so it has a little bit of saltiness to it. I need just about a cup. Using starchy water is going to it's going to help thicken up your sauce, and it's going to give a nice velvety texture to it that you can really get. I've got a strainer over here, so I'm just going to strain it. There we go. And we're just going to let it sit there until I'm ready to throw it in my pot, because we'll toss everything in. Okay, here we've got our butter melting, looking delicious. Beautiful. And I'm doing it nice and slow because I want those flavors to the garlic and the onion to really come out into the butter, so it has a lot of flavor in it. We're going to add in, right now, you just need about 1/2 cup of white wine. I'm going to put it in here nice and slow so it has time to, to dissolve. Or nice, not really dissolve, but to kind of evaporate a little bit. But I always want to cook off that kind of the flavor, but you want a little bit of that in here because we're making this kind of delicious sauce base for our shrimp scampi. Now, while we're letting that kind of get out, let me get a little bit of lemon juice. Some of this lemon is going to go over our shrimp, and some of it's going in here, so we got to save it. I'm going to squeeze in 1/2 of my lemon to go in here with that white wine and the butter. Now, we haven't added any salt yet to this, but we will in a little bit. But we want to first get our flavors in there kind of marinating. There we go. I'm going to give it a nice little stir. And again, we want it to reduce slowly because you don't want your butter to scorch. And butter has a really high smoking or a low smoking point. And you know what? We'll let this sit for just a second before we add our spinach in. Let's get our shrimp kind of going. Let's get a quick little marinade on them, and then we're going to saute them off in our pan in a couple batches. So I'm just going to drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil. We're actually going to cook them in butter, but a little bit of olive oil to help some of this flavors stick on them, about 8 tablespoons or so. We're going to use garlic salt. We want a good shake on here because I've got 2 pounds of shrimp in here. These are like the Collosal shrimp, which I think make the best for shrimp scampi because I just think Collosal shrimp are the best. So we have about a teaspoon of garlic salt. And I'm going to squeeze my lemon juice over here. I'm actually going to squeeze it over. Now, the lemon juice will actually start to cook the shrimp through like a chemical process. You know, that's how you make a ceviche. So once we kind of put the lemon juice on it, we're going to want to start cooking it up soon.
You have a question? Do you like garlic salt better than the powder?
I do. I find garlic salt dissolves really nicely. I feel like garlic powder has a bit of a grit to it. And then we're going to sprinkle a little bit of pepper over these. There we go. Let me grab a pair of tongs over here. And I'm just going to stir them, kind of coat them up with both sides, and then we'll get our butter cooking over here, and we're going to saute them in butter. Now, shrimp cooks really, really fast, so you don't have to worry, like, you're not going to undercook it because as soon as your shrimp turns pink, you know it's done. That's something that's nice about it. It's not like chicken where there's a little bit of guess room. Okay, we've got those kind of coated in there. I'm going to turn on my skillet here. Because I'm cooking them in butter, I'm not going to have them on high all the way because that butter will scorch. So I'm actually going to cook them over a medium high at around a 7. And then we're going to we've got a little bit of oil already on our shrimp, and I'm going to put a little, I do half and half. It kind of helps the butter from burning when you're cooking it a little bit higher. So we'll do about a half a tablespoon of oil with, let me grab a knife over here, about 2 tablespoons of butter. And once that's melted up and it's nice and hot, we'll start cooking our chicken in batches. Let's start getting our, not our shrimp in here, our spinach in here. Now I'm going to make a kind of a creamier shrimp scampi for my kids because they prefer it a little bit creamier, but we're going to add in our spinach. Baby spinach works well for this. Of course, I missed half of my thing with it. Let's grab. If you're going to use big leaf spinach, I would just give it a quick chop in there because I know baby spinach is a little bit more expensive. But we're going to first kind of coat everything up in it, let it wilt down. We'll add our cream in towards the end, but I don't want to add it in yet because I don't want it to split. Here we go. And we're going to add in, so I have that cup of our starchy water. We're going to add this in. I'm going to turn up just a smidge. And we're going to let it kind of evaporate and cook. That starchy water is going to help kind of create a little bit of a thicker sauce.
You have a question? What was in the pan before the spinach?
That was our fresh garlic and our fresh onions that we minced up and we sauteed until they were nice and kind of golden brown. And again, brought all those flavors out, and then we put a stick of butter in there to melt it. So really infuse it with that onion and our butter flavor, and then about a half cup of white wine and half a lemon, like juice from half a lemon. So all of our really good kind of flavors for this shrimp scampi. And I'm cooking the shrimp in a separate one to put in here so that your shrimp doesn't get overcooked, because when shrimp gets overcooked, it kind of gets rubbery. So I like to just do a hot, like sear off, like saute them off, and then I'll add them into our scampi when it's done cooking. Here we go. We've got our shrimp in, or our spinach in here. Now I'm going to season it up with a little bit of garlic salt. This is such a simple dish that you don't need a lot to kind of those flavors up. So we're shaking about a teaspoon around. Again, we got to have this kind of season up all of those noodles that we're going to throw in here. And then I've got some fresh parsley that we're going to chop up here in just a second as well. Let me grab a spoon.
Yeah, question. What's a good substitute for the wine?
You could use chicken broth. So you could just use a half cup of chicken broth. That will give you a nice kind of rich flavor too. Okay, got this. We're going to put our first batch of shrimp. Do not just dump your whole bowl of shrimp in. You want each one to kind of cook on its own. So I'm just going to put them in, give them their space and to saute up, and then I'll transfer them to a clean plate when we're done. And then I'll know that they're ready. And these need about like 30 seconds to a minute on each side. They don't need long to cook. Okay, my oven is beeping, so let's go grab our garlic bread and our asparagus out, and then we'll have just a little bit more prep. Beautiful. Let's see. You know what? Actually, I think they're good. Let me get this one out first, and then we'll come back for that one. So this is our asparagus. The cheese is nice and melted, and my spears are nice and bright green. That's when you know they're going to be a nice tender kind of edge on it. I'm going to flip my shrimp over real quick before we go back and get the second one. But we have the Parmesan on there. We did a really simple garlic, salt, and black pepper on it for just a really simple but delicious oven roasted asparagus. I'm flipping my shrimp over, but you see how lovely they look, this nice crispy edge on them, and they're getting nice and kind of bright. There we go. So I'm going to rotate because my top part's a little bit hotter, and then I'm going to grab a plate or another little bowl to put these in because I don't want to add them in until the very end so they don't overcook. And then I'm going to go grab, real quick, I'll go grab our garlic bread. This was very difficult garlic bread to make. I just opened up a package, but it will be delicious nonetheless. Okay, we've got this cooking up wonderful. Let me grab my spoon to taste it, see how my flavors are working together. Delicious. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of, I said my kids like theirs creamy. If you do not have to add cream in. If you want it more traditional, leave it as it is. But my kids like a more creamy base to theirs, so we're doing kind of a creamy shrimp scampi. I'm adding about a half cup, maybe a little less than a half cup of cream in right now.
No question. What kind of cheese is on the asparagus?
That is Parmesan cheese. So it's shaved Parmesan cheese, which melts a little bit better than shredded. Okay, we've got our creamy in there. Let's remove our first batch of our little shrimpies here. Got this nice little sear on it. Yeah, they want to just hop away from me. There we go. But I have these. Remember, we did like half butter, half oil, and that just allows you to get a good high enough heat on it without worrying about those milk solids scorching, which I think just gives it a better flavor and cook to it as well. So we got our first batch in. We're going to put our second ones in. And again, don't cloud your pan, because if you were to put all of the shrimp in at one time, what would happen is all that liquid would come out and none of them would get that good sear on them. There we go. So we'll get this next batch. And this is, I've got 2 pounds of shrimp here. And this is the Collosal shrimp, which is about 13 to 15 shrimp per pound. I always like the really big ones. I think they just cook up and taste a little better. But I always wait. Most people wouldn't think about this, but Target has in their freezer section where they keep their frozen fish and stuff, they have shrimp there. And I will say their shrimp goes on sale all the time because I don't think as many people buy it. And you can get really good prices. I got these buy one, get one free. So they were such a good price. Okay, let's pop our noodles in here and let it kind of cook up. So I've got pop those in real quick. This is my spaghetti noodles that we used for this. I'll just steal this one for it. And we want to coat it with this creamy sauce that is made. We've got that garlic, that lemon juice, a little white wine, onions minced in there. It's just a really light sauce. I put a little bit of cream in it to just make it a little bit smoother. Plus we had about a cup of our starchy water. Beautiful. But it's just a really simple dinner here that will be delicious, especially with our asparagus. So I'm going to turn this down nice and low because I want those flavors to really soak into the noodles. And then I'm going to mince up my parsley here. We'll flip our second set of shrimpies and we'll kind of get all this assembled together. I always put my shrimps in last so they don't continue to overcook, because I think shrimp is something that constantly gets overcooked because it cooks so fast. And it's like scallops. I feel like scallops, a lot of times they get overcooked and then they get rubbery. So we've got a good healthy serving of Italian parsley or flat leaf parsley. I personally prefer Italian parsley, like flat leaf parsley, for when I'm cooking. I think it just has a slightly nicer texture and flavor than curly leaf, but they are very similar. There we go. Okay, let's flip our shrimp over. There we go. Looking good. But you can see that how they're cooking, they're still pale on one side, but when you flip them over, you've got that nice bright kind of pinkish orange that lets you know that they're cooked through when they're all that nice color.
You have a question? Will you be posting the recipe?
I will upload this video to the link on our page, so you will be able to recreate our recipes just by going to the link, searching for what we cooked for, and then you can just watch it again and cook along with me again. So that is the best way. We do offer recipe cards for our members, and we send out a couple each week for them. But what we give free for everybody is our videos, so everybody can always just rewatch them. Here we go. Now let me grab a fork. I want to try this. See if I need to add anything else in. I'm going to add just a little bit of garlic salt now that we've added a little bit more. So just a smidge of garlic salt, since we have a good amount. And then squeeze a little bit more of my lemon juice in here. Beautiful. And just a pinch more pepper. We'll also, when I serve it, sprinkle Parmesan cheese over the top, because I think that just makes it so good. But it again, it is a really simple, light sauce, but it just goes really well with the shrimp. We're going to sprinkle our fresh parsley over since we are almost ready to kind of serve up here, because we will be just about ready to put in our shrimpies. I don't know why I always call them shrimpies, because they're cute, and that's what I call my kids. You know, to get my kids to eat shrimp, I told them because they love salmon. I told them they were salmon, little baby salmons. And then I told them that scallops were like salmon balls. You know, everything you get to get them to eat things when they were, you know, little. And I know for like anytime the first time they like did whitefish, I was like, oh, it's just white salmon, because everything had to be a salmon in a form. Okay, these are looking great. So I'm going to turn them off. We'll add the rest of our little shrimp right in here. Put them on here, and then we'll stir it in. But this is just, as long as you don't like cook all your shrimp up and then throw your pasta in, your shrimp will stay lovely. It's when you try to cook them all at one time, then your shrimp is going to get rubbery, lose its flavor, and it's just not quite as delicious. There we go. So now we can just kind of tuck them in just a little bit into that pasta. Beautiful. They'll have that nice kind of lemon butter sauce on them as well. And remember, we did marinate our shrimp in that lemon juice with garlic, salt, and black pepper, and a little bit of olive oil. Okay, guys. I told you this was a really simple dinner. Let me get a cutting board out so I can just cut my garlic bread up real quick, and then we can plate up dinner, because you know what? It's the first, technically, I guess it's a school night after summer. It's crazy how early school starts here. I remember when I was a kid, it started at the end of August. So it's like crazy that it's so early here. So here's my little hack. I always have this garlic bread in my freezer, because you know what? Sometimes I can make a homemade meal, but I didn't think about the bread or whatnot. But voila, let's plate up dinner. Keeping it simple here, guys. Okay, let's get our asparagus over here. I'm just gonna do a little rearranging. Got my big pan over here. I do love this is again, I think I mentioned my 6-quart saute pan. I have it in my Amazon storefront, but I love it for pasta dishes, because look, I've got a whole thing of spaghetti in there, and how it just sits nicely. If I had done it in my 12-inch frying pan, it would never have fit. I love the little lip on it. Okay, guys, let's serve up. So tonight we made our delicious shrimp scampi. So we made a lovely scampi sauce using minced onion, minced fresh garlic, white wine, a little bit of starchy pasta water, and a touch of cream and some garlic salt. We added in spinach here, and then we sauteed up our shrimp using butter, and we had garlic salt and fresh lemon juice. So it's just your classic shrimp scampi recipe. We have our oven roasted asparagus that we will have as a lovely side, because you got to add a little extra vegetables to it. And then, of course, our classic garlic bread that you can buy in the freezer section of any grocery store. But just a simple, easy dinner that we made in like 30 minutes, but just delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes, all you have to go is to that link on our page, search for what we cooked, shrimp scampi, and then you can watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our cooking gear in it. I've got my Hexclad fry pans. I've got my saute pans in there. I've got all the different kitchen gadgets I use in the kitchen in my Amazon store for you guys to check out if you're interested. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.